Perabo talks about politics and activism.
I come from another universe and from another dimension governed by different laws of physics. I have taken on the human form to get to know more about what you call Earth.
We have Michelle, who is the Chief Marketing Officer and founding team member of Swing Left. Y'all know Swing Left? Leslie was like, they got lots of my money.
Thank you.
And Piper is an actor and activist. And that's what we're going to really kick off this conversation about, is both of these women, I think, had a moment in 2016, as many of us did in the past several years, where they were like, there's a bigger role in my life for activism. It's time to do something. And we want to hear that origin story, that moment, or that process, that journey that got you to this point. Piper, you want to start?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight. I think my real launch into activism was the day the Access Hollywood tapes came out. I was in my house doing the laundry and folding laundry, listening to the news, which is like what I like to do, and they played those tapes. And I got so upset because I just felt like I didn't know that people in leadership talk like this. There weren't men in my life that spoke like this that I knew of. And this was someone in culture, in the entertainment business, and then someone running for president of the United States. And I thought, as horrible as it felt, I just thought like, well, this is a game changer. In the country that I'm in, you can't talk about anybody this way. And this is the end of it. Show up. That'll teach you who's in leadership, what's the language, how do we talk about it, where are we working, and in a year you can say something.
It's so good.
And I was like, okay, if that's what John's doing because Dream said it, that's what I'm gonna do. So I spent a year just like, I jumped into like campaign fundraisers and marches and finding out who all my representatives are and getting their office addresses and starting to call their office, just like everything I could do. And that's how I started.
That's awesome.
And Swing Left was one of those places that as I started finding where to listen and how to learn and where to go and who could use my help or volunteer or whatever, one of the places that everyone talked about was Swing Left.
Thanks. Yeah.
If you live in or near an area, you are an expert in that community and what's going on. So your voice and your help can be so meaningful because whatever your job is, teacher, healthcare, whatever it is, you can speak to what's going on in that area because you live nearby and you have family and friends that work in the community. And so you can be really useful because it's close to home. So you're an expert in what's going on in that area as opposed to, flying to some other place to try and fundraise.
Or feeling like you can just give money. And that's all you can do.
Right.
Totally.
I want to ask you about the different ways that people can do their activism work. Because I've heard from a lot of listeners who've said, there seems to be a selection bias in activism. Like you think of it as, I need to be willing to get arrested, I need to be willing to hold a sign and yell at people, I need to be willing to knock on strangers' doors. But there's a lot of work that can be done in activism, right? And so can you help us kind of think about, if I'm not the person who wants to be on the front lines, we've been talking about.
I put it on my list. I've decided it's time for me to get arrested. I'm ready.
I'll get arrested with you.
Yeah, I'm ready. I think it's time. Y'all listen to podcasts. I'm ready. I'm not at all.
This is Piper's area.
I know. You took a class.
Yeah.
I thought Piper could just give me the cliff notes on what I need to know.
And I'll go with you.
Yes. Because I was, first of all, I protested in the Old Navy in college. Why did I not get arrested there? That would have been a good time. But I was in public. I was a city commissioner, so that was probably not the best time. But now it's holding me back. I'm a podcaster. I can go get arrested.
It'd be an amazing pod.
Right? I can record. Think about the audio.
Let's make it live.
Yeah. Let's just
For a moment, speak to the people who maybe don't want to be arrested. For a variety of reasons.
It's for Amy
There is
McGrath.
a role.
Thank you.
There is a role. So let me help you figure out what that role is. But talk to us about the texting, which does make my heart rate go up a little bit.
So I put out my cell phone number, 917-444-9557. You can text me there. And what I want to do is, every time I say it, I'm still like, what are you doing?
I literally read the other day that it's more valuable than your social security number.
It was like really scary, but I thought, on Twitter and Instagram, like, I don't really know who you are. You know, people have these like pictures, these cartoons for their face, and like they can say whatever they want, their names, like, you know, flower vase 456. I don't know you. And so if you text me, first of all, I know what state you're from. So then I can ask you, like, so who do you like in the Kentucky primary? So what part of Kentucky are you in? So in Tennessee, there's a mayoral election in Memphis. I'm like, what do you think about the mayoral election? Like, what, do you like Tammy Sawyer? Does she seem smart? Like, who else do you like? So I can text back and forth with people. A woman from Nebraska texted me 2 days ago, and she was like, there's no Democrats where I live. And I'm like, tell me what's going on. Like, it's this sort of open exchange. And last night, even on the text, I'm so worried about the Amazon, you know, is on fire. And so a friend of mine sent me the phone number for the Brazilian consulate in DC. And he was like, I'm going to call the Brazilian consulate and leave like 30 messages for the president of Brazil saying how nervous I am about the Amazon burning. And I was like, yes. So I texted everybody on my text and I was like, here's the number for the Brazilian consulate. I'm so nervous about the rainforest. Like, I'm going to call. I'm going to do it right now. I just want to give you guys the number. And like, if you call, tell me what happens. Like, text me back. Then I called. The office is closed. You can't leave a message. I tried every option. Like, press 7 for Portuguese. No, you cannot get through. So then I looked up the email for the Brazilian consulate. And I'm like, you guys, I couldn't get through. Here's the email. This is a screen grab of the email I'm sending to the Brazilian consulate. I'm in a panic. And I'm just trying to find ways to, like, make my voice heard. But it was really cool. Like, people were texting me back. And they're like, I wrote my email. I'm going to think about it and write it in the morning. Here's what I wrote. I mean, I'm going to call my senator and tell them that I'm really worried and I want to put pressure to make sure that we're supporting Brazil and fighting the fires. It's a lot, but I don't live in Kentucky. But I don't want Mitch McConnell to be the senator because him being the senator affects my life. But I understand that Kentucky needs to vote for the senator that's right for them. So I need to be able to hear people from Kentucky tell me what's going on. And so that's what's been really interesting about the cell phone.
Let these two women from Kentucky tell you that Mitch McConnell is not right for Kentucky. Just not right. Not right for Kentucky. I do need that Brazilian consulate number because the said lady at the front desk of Senator Paul's office is getting really tired of talking to me. We built a relationship together. We talk a lot. She's very nice, but every time she's like, you again. Yeah, it is me again.
It's so great though because I found one of the most powerful things that I can do is write a letter and then post it on Facebook and say, here is the letter that I wrote. And then everybody copies the letter.
Sold in
Yemen.
In Yemen.
Yeah, and the Senate said no.
They were shutting down, they own all the bodegas in Brooklyn. And so they were shutting down the bodegas as a sign that, like, you can't do this without us. And then they had speakers, and it was really cool and organized.
And listen, let me just, for a moment of grace and nuance, I call Rand Paul to encourage him because he's actually really good on that issue. That's the one thing he's at.
It's really important to call your elected officials and say, like, good job.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. That's so true. It's so true. And the lady at the front desk was so excited that I was calling to say, I like what he did today. He did a good job today. I'll call back tomorrow, but today he did good.
One of my favorite moments so far in the movement has been the day that I got arrested. I was protesting the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. And it was the first day of the Kavanaugh hearings, and I had never been arrested before, and I was very nervous to interrupt a senator, but a lot of women got arrested that day. And you're taken out of the hearing room, and they take your belongings, and you're handcuffed, and then you're brought in an elevator down to the basement and loaded into, like, paddy wagons, which I never saw one of those in real life before. I mean, in movies all the time, but in the real life ones, there's like a metal wall in between the two benches that are facing each other. And so we were being loaded into these trucks to go to the police station. And my bench was full, and so they started loading women onto the other bench. And on the other side of the bench, this woman starts like kicking the metal wall between us, and I was like, what's going on? And then she starts singing, Who Runs the World, Girls, Girls. I was like, yes. and like they could hear it in other trucks, and like the women were singing this Beyonce song, and I was like, this is what it feels like in a movement. I don't know all these women, you know, and like I was nervous and scared and like sweating and like I don't know what's, but like that was so cool to hear that song. I just felt like this isn't some other generation, this isn't some other time, this isn't a movie, this is really right now, and women being very intentional about how to use their power.
Michelle, you should have gone first. Now you got to follow Beyonce.